All right, we do have a little bit of good news that we wanted to make sure we got into the show, which is that there are a lot of places around the country that are going to have minimum wage increase, even though they weren't able to get it done at the federal level. Let's put this Axios information up on the screen here. It's tear sheet. Record number of minimum wage increases set for 2022. They cite a report from the National Employment Law Project that found that 25 states and 56 municipalities are going to raise their minimum wages by the end of 2022. In a lot of areas, that wage floor is going to meet or exceed $15 per hour. They have more information here. 47 cities and counties by the end of this year are going to have wages that meet or exceed $15 per hour. That includes DC, includes 11 different California localities where a $15 minimum wage has already been met, and further wage increases to account for inflation are expected. There are 10 new states with laws in place looking to reach minimum wage of $15 or more by a specific amount of time. So a lot of progress here. On the flip side, there are still 20 states that have not raised the minimum wage below the federal floor, which is $7.25 an hour, which is pathetic, which has been stuck at that level since 2009, which is the longest time in the history of the program of minimum wage that has gone without an increase, which is pathetic. But at least some states and localities are trying to make up for it on their own terms.
Yeah, we want to try and highlight this. I mean, it's always good news whenever we see that. And yes, I'm not going to lie, with the price of goods increasing, some of it's going to be negated, but at least take-home pay will keep pace at least somewhat. Let's also put this up there from the Washington Post. Really interesting piece about the most unusual job market in modern American history. And some of the key takeaways there are that demand for workers right now has recovered, but the number of willing workers has not. And we've consistently pointed this out. There's a lot of reasons for this. Some people have left the workforce, some who are older, on the older side of the spectrum. Some people decided that they like spending time more with their kids, so they just simply don't want to go back to work. And some people also cannot find a job in their desired category and don't necessarily want to go back to the type of employment that they were doing before. So that's pretty interesting. But the other thing is that it is still one of the fastest and slowest recoveries at the same time. It's the fastest return for the unemployment rate, but the slowest return in modern history for labor force participation. And I think that we have to try and keep coming back to this, which is that there's a lot of reasons, Krystal, that people just aren't going back to work.
Yeah.
And some of them are good if you value those, like we're saying, spending time more with your children. Also, with all the school disruptions that you tell me about, I think it's pretty crazy that you even get to come here and do the show all the time. I don't know how that worked, right? So this is repeating itself on a level all across the entire country. There's a lot of people who have to deal with the same thing. A lot of people said, hey, driving for Uber really sucks. Hey, working, you always point to this in nursing homes. Are these, those workers got hammered and they were like, you know what, screw this. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
There's a lot of jobs like that across the whole country. The burnout is very real. And it is making it so that we have both the fastest recovery in terms of the actual unemployment rate. And this is what the Biden people never seem to understand. They're like, we have one of the best economies in history. People are still dislodged. They feel upset. Nothing is normal. Nothing is real. School, closed, on, off. CDC, they change the recommendation every other day, and then they admit some fake reason as to why they're doing so. Nothing is yet back to the way where people want it to be. They don't feel like they personally are going in the right direction. There's a lot of different reasons for that, and exactly whether you can even solve that is a very, very difficult, thing. But the one piece of good news within this has been the blue-collar Great Resignation, with the ability of blue-collar workers across this country to quit basically as they see fit and immediately seek employment for a higher wage, usually in the same town. Now, the wage is still not high enough. It should be a lot higher, but that is the one good thing I think that's come from this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a mix here of one of the most interesting charts in this is they look at why people are saying that they left their jobs. And there seems to be a mix of some things that are affirmative choices where people reevaluate it. And this is the part that I think is so encouraging. People basically reevaluating what really counts in their lives.
Right.
And having a little bit of market power to be able to stand up for themselves and say, I'm not working this shitty low-paid job where I'm, disrespected and treated as less than human anymore. I'm just not going to do that. And, and in some cases, they were sort of forced into that reassessment because so many people were laid off at the beginning of the pandemic. And so you didn't have a choice of staying at that shitty low-paid job and you had to reevaluate. So some of it is choice and affirmative, and that's really positive. Some of it seems to not be choice. So for some people are really still worried about getting sick and worried about, caring for people in their life who have gotten sick from COVID. Some people are struggling to find childcare. This is another issue of childcare has become, way more expensive. It's also one of the industries that's been hard hit by those workers in that industry are very low paid. So this is one of the areas where there's been huge turnover and childcare facilities having trouble finding workers at the wage that they're paying, which would indicate that the government should get involved and help to subsidize those wages so that there would be
there's a lot of
wildly, more available and affordable childcare so that people who want to work and are struggling to find affordable childcare would be able to do it. There are some people who just say, I don't want to work. That could be a sort of life assessment thing. So there's a real interesting mixed bag here. The number one reason, though, 38% of those who aren't working cited retirement. There were so many early retirements of people who just during the pandemic, they said, you know what, we're done here. I'm not going back. I'm at a point where I can make it work. I'm going to make it work. I'm just leaving. And that's kind of the largest percent of ultimately what we see going on here. And of course, we see the way that people are reorienting their relationship to the workplace in many, many different ways. We're going to talk to these two Starbucks workers who were part of the successful union drive up in Buffalo. We see more Starbucks filing for union elections across the country. It seems to have been that sort of domino effect that the Starbucks executives most feared and that the Amazon executives also really feared with regards to Bessemer. We've, of course, tracked the strike waves. We've tracked the Great Resignation. We've tracked the workers at fast food places that, they just have a mass, they're just done. They lock up the door and put a little note on the door and say, we're done here, we're going somewhere else. So there's clearly a major reorientation that is happening here that, it's possible that it really shakes out for the better. Right now, those wage gains are being eaten by inflation, but the hope is that the wage gains persist and that the prices return back to normal. So we'll see. It's something we certainly will be tracking very, very closely all this year long.
There's a high level of discontent. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. I don't think any election's going to solve that. But from discontent often is born new choices, reevaluations, and more. So I hope that we can come out on the other side of this thing.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.